So, good morning. Lost you there for a sec. There we go. Good morning, Kerwin. Thank you very much for joining the Overseas Athlete Podcast.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, me too. It's I know the backstory, but I'll get you to dive into it. I know that you've been in Spain for the last 9-10 months, so it's sort of with a group of kids. So I'll get you to just tell us about how that came about and the experience overall.
Yeah, so obviously, Chris been coaching in Australia for the past 10 years. Okay, a lot with youth development. That's where my passion is. And because Australia only has the A-League, which is just one professional competition, there's not many opportunities for our young players to turn pro or to get the opportunity to be there. Okay, so I try to dive a little bit deeper. I've looked in the US. The US is mainly for kids that are 18 and older that have finished high school. I was looking for a little bit of a younger age group going over and playing in a very professional environment. And I did some research for many years now. And the one that came across was Spain. Obviously, we all know Spain's a powerhouse in football. The culture is good. Did some lots of research regarding pathways and that. And I know there's a lot of academies that offer opportunities to go to Spain, but just to play in friendlies and tournaments, which is good. But I was looking for something a little bit more where I could get players to go over to live the culture, to be full-time, but also to play in federation competitions as well as friendly games and tournaments and try and get players on trial with the bigger Spanish academies. So that's how it came about. I did a lot of research. There's academies that I touched base with in Madrid, Barcelona. And then I came across this academy. Well, actually, I came across Jose Barca. He's a player agent, coach agent. And we started talking. And then he told me about his academy that he has in Huesca. It's a small little city. There's about 55,000 people in it. I did some research into it, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity because the city is nice and small. There's not too many bright lights for young players to get distracted, so they can go there and focus on their football and why they're there. Okay. So I did some research, and then obviously COVID came about, so we had to put everything on hold because Spain got closed, and then our Australian borders got closed as well. And then in 2022, back end of 2021, I reopened it with him, and he was looking for some Australian players. And obviously, he did some research with me and my academy and the quality of players I had. So I said, you know what, let's take a go at it. Obviously, I'm also a passionate coach, a football coach, where I wanted to be challenged. I wasn't getting challenged over here in Australia. I got to a point where I didn't know what to do, whether I just leave coaching or, try and look outside for a new challenge. But also I've been coaching boys since they were 9 years old, and they've come through the development process with me. Okay. They were all playing NPL. So I decided to obviously have a meeting with all the parents, explain this, how we're going to do things. It's a season-long program, which is 10.5 months. Okay. The players leave Australia or New Zealand. They go over to Huesca. They live there in Huesca. They train every day. They just have one day off a week. Okay. And the training includes field sessions with their team that they in their age group. Also gym sessions. We do video analysis sessions. We do group sessions that are position specific to the player. And also the kids do their online schooling, because I feel that schooling is still a big part, education. So they still do online education through Cairns distance education, and they still do the Australian curriculum, right, which is online. And then they do 4 Spanish lessons a week just to learn Spanish so they can communicate with their teammates, with their coaches, with the S&C coaches.
All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot to jump into there. That's really cool. Like it's awesome and an awesome experience. Obviously, I might start just a little bit at the beginning in regards to
Okay.
like the research.
Yes.
More so, obviously, you've done all that from Australia. How did you, I suppose, go about finding what was going to be good and what might just be, a bit of a show that might not actually deliver on what you wanted? Obviously, it took a long time, but
Yes.
was there anything particular that stood out or that you were looking for to make sure you knew it was going to be the real deal?
Yeah, well, obviously, the values that we have at Football Centre of Development, obviously, we transparent in anything we do. We're really upfront with parents. We have a family environment where not only our players and myself get together, but the parents interact as a one big family. Okay, so when I looked and I dug deep into it, I had some hard conversations with the CEO and tried to find out what are their values, how do they look at things. I'm not just coming over there just so my boys can play football, because we can do that in Australia, right? But we want to try and create opportunities for the boys if they're good enough, obviously. And also we want to put them in an environment where they also not only live away from home, but learn those life skills by being on their own, doing their own washing, maybe going to the shops to do their own shopping, little things like that, looking after themselves, getting to training on time. So there was a lot of research that was done and a lot of Zoom calls back and forth and things like this. I met Jose Barca personally in 2020 in Madrid to have a conversation with him around this. He seemed like a very genuine guy at the time. While I was talking to him, he was honest up front. And obviously we just kicked off from there.
So you went
forward.
there. You went there yourself to Madrid.
Yes.
To meet them in person.
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
and also Jose Barca, through his agency, International Players and Coaches, they held a tournament in 2020. At that time, I was with Brisbane Roar Academy, and I actually went over with the under-16 team to coach them in the International Players Cup. And that's how I met him face to face. And we sat and we spoke about a project and how can we give opportunities for Australian players to come over. That's just a start.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome. And as you say, it's good to meet someone face to face and get that good feel for them on what they're about and like that. Put your faith in them and you relay that back to your parents to say, look, I've met these guys. They look like they've got a good program. You've done a lot of research, so no, that's fantastic. It's one of those things because like that when you're here in Australia and it's all good doing things online, but it's always great to sit in front of someone and actually get a good feel for them, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, it's always good to be face to face. So obviously, I can get a sense of how to take that person, and see if they are legit and because there's lots of people that can talk the talk, Chris, especially in football, but when you really take that step, there's none of that goes with it.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. And the ages of the kids that went over then, because obviously you spoke a lot about
Yes.
life lessons and shopping, get to training on time, etc., which are
Yes.
important. So what ages did the kids range from that went across with you?
Chris, the youngest boy that left with us, he was 14 at the time. Okay. We had 14, 15-year-olds, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds that went with us. So in total, there was about 17 boys that went with us at the start, and that was the beginning of September 2022.
Okay, excellent. Big range there as well. So obviously different maturity levels for you guys to manage as well, with young boys away from home.
Yeah, but I also need to thank the older boys in the group, which really helped the younger boys. as well, which was really good. As I said, we are family.
Mm.
But also going over there and in the residence, there's boys from Brazil, Argentina, Canada, America, Peru. Okay, when we got into the residence, they welcomed us as we knew each other for a long time.
Mm.
Okay, which was really good for our boys because it was like one big family in the residence.
Mm.
The chef was really good. The tutors that actually are in the residence as well with the boys, they really good to help and to assist where they need or if the boys need any help, which was really good as well.
And that I'll get onto that because that sounds quite
Okay.
important. But initially, what were the conversations like with the parents? Because obviously, a kid at 14, 12
Yes.
years old, 14 years old, leaving home, it's different. They leave at
Yes.
18; they're already emotional enough. But leaving the young kids to go, how did those conversations go? And
Yeah.
what was the parents' main, I suppose, not concerns, but questions and what they wanted to know?
So obviously, Chris, we did up a presentation. So we are really organized when we did it. We did up a presentation to give the parents an outlook what the city looks like,
Mm.
where about it's situated, what type of people, like the age range of the people living in the city, where will the boys stay, so the accommodation, where will they train, how far is the training field. So when we did all this, the first question came was, Kerwin, are you going over? And
Mm.
because I've worked with the boys and I've gained a lot of trust from the parents over the years working with them, I think it was a sign of relief for them that I was actually going there
Mm.
and going to be there with the boys for the 10 months.
Mm.
Okay. As much as I'm a coach and a mentor and I can manage players, I'm also like their big brother or
Mm.
their father, like, if they need someone to talk to, I'm always there. I'll drop to their level. We'll have a conversation. We'll have a orange juice or a coffee, and we'll have a chat. So the big question was, Kerwin, if you going, we don't have a problem
Mm.
with that. Okay, so obviously it put a lot of pressure on myself
Mm.
because taking 17 kids is a big ask because there's different personalities.
Mm.
You don't know what to expect because it's the first time you're going to be living in Europe for so long, right?
Mm.
New culture, the weather's different compared to what we used to here in Queensland. Okay, it gets colder in winter. There's snow, which our boys are not used to. But for me, it was a challenge. But also the bigger thing, because I've got a passion for developing players and trying to create opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I wanted to do. It's like a calling for me, Chris.
Yeah.
Where I can try and create these opportunities and also let the parents be assured that I'll be there and I'll be trying to do the right thing for their kids
Mm.
while we overseas.
Yeah, and as you say, that comes with years of trust and relationship. If you've known a lot of them since they were 8, 9 years old, it makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, fantastic. And did any of the parents make the trip over during the 10 months?
Yeah, so a parent, two parent. Well, obviously there was a family that actually moved over and set up in in Spain for
Mm.
for the year. Okay, um, and then there was parents that came back and forth to visit and
Mm.
especially over the Christmas period,
Yeah.
to be closer to their kids, they came over. And then we some of the boys had a tournament in Madrid, so they came to Madrid as well to support
Mm.
them and be there for that week, which was really good.
And how did the boys find it? The young boys, obviously, they've got you there as a familiar face, but being away from mum and dad at that age, how I know you can. I suppose they're focusing on football, which keeps them busy, but no doubt homesickness and a bit of concern here or there would have crept in.
Yeah, I think, Chris, the first I would say 2 months, the boys were just so excited because they're doing what they love.
Mm.
They playing football every day. They training. They with their mates. There's mum and dad not nagging them to clean their room or we need to do this. It was really good. Then it came closer to Christmas, and obviously the cold crept in, like around November,
Mm.
where obviously it affected some boys. Okay,
Mm.
and then it just I needed to be on top of it. I needed to have those conversations regularly with certain boys just to see how they're doing, you know, and to make sure that they were okay, because that's the most important thing for me. They need to be okay. You know, but obviously because the boys are in a apartment with three in a room, they also look after each other, which was really good. You know, even the 15-year-old, the 14-year-old, they bonded together and they were like brothers, which was good. Yeah, so obviously getting through, and then, you know, some boys will have bad games, some boys won't train properly because they're missing home. Some boys they weren't able to sleep on time because obviously, you know, they want to call home and talk to their family because of the time difference and that. But we actually we got through it. I thought there would be a lot more problems, but there wasn't that much over there. But it was a
Just
good experience. But it actually prepared me for the oncoming seasons. You know.
Oh, definitely. I was going to say, like, moving forward, the experience you've had in the last 10 months and managing a different range of emotions, different range of kids, homesickness, cold, like the experience you would have had from that would be just invaluable, wouldn't it, for the
Yes.
next time?
Yeah. I totally I agree with that. But also I lived it, so now I know what I'm talking about, because obviously the Spanish culture is a little bit different to the Australian culture, right? So obviously you wake up. Breakfast is not that big a meal. It's breakfast, and then obviously it's around 8 in the morning, and then you get lunch that's at 2 in the afternoon, and dinner's around 9 p.m. Okay, because they eat dinner really late over there. Where obviously our kids, it's more 6:30, 7 p.m. if they're not training. So it was a big shock to the boys' body, but when they got used to it, they were taking their little siestas in the afternoon before training. So it was really good.
So they got into that Spanish lifestyle. I lived in Spain myself many, many years ago, and getting used to that siesta and the 9 o'clock dinner was strange. But I can imagine for young kids as well, it's even stranger. It's just something completely, you know, unfamiliar to them.
Yeah, it was at first it was like a shock to them, but then obviously because the city that we live in closes from 1:30 to 5 because of the siesta, the people over there value their family time. So they finish at 1:30, they'll go home, they'll have lunch with the family, they'll relax, they'll have a little nap, and then they come back to work, which our boys at first were seeing, and then they started doing that. You know, so obviously it became a routine for them. So around 2:30, 3 p.m. they'll go for a nap, and then training's at 5:30, so they'll wake up before training. Yeah, so it was really good.
And did that, when you first went over there, did you have your sessions and your sort of days planned around that, or did you have to adjust that as you went along as the boys sort of got used to that environment?
So obviously there was a timetable put forward, and what I did when I did my research, I asked them for the timetable 6 months in advance. Okay, more or less, give or take. So the boys that were going with me, I put them on a program. Not all boys could make the sessions, but we would do gym sessions in the morning, team training in the afternoon with their various clubs at the time, the NPL clubs. We'd have a game on Saturday, we'd do a session on Sunday just to prepare them. So when they get there, they were ready and their body wouldn't take time to adjust. So, which was really good. When we got there, all our boys hit the ground running. We were fit, we were match fit. Our bodies were resilient to the gym sessions, to the conditioning sessions. Our boys were actually fitter than their boys.
It's interesting. It was something I was going to ask about because a few people I've spoken with, you know, different reasons in different sports as well. It's like when they go to these other countries, they sometimes find that they are underdone because they think they're fit here, or you're training you 3 nights a week. But when you go over there, it's obviously a different level up. So you've done about 6 months of prep work before that. That's
Yes.
excellent. Yeah.
So that included gym sessions. Obviously, different players require different sessions. Okay, depending on the age. Because like my thought is, you're going to go to Europe or to Spain, and obviously the players are technically good, or what we know. Okay, from Australia, so we need to have something different. So we need to be fitter, we need to be faster, to make up for those technical attributes that we might not have. But I had faith in my boys that we did, which was really good. And obviously, me coaching the Cadete Division Honor and working closely with the Spanish boys, I think in Australia, our conditioning side of the game is a little bit advanced to the Spanish. Where our boys could last 80 minutes. And even if the game went into extra time, we could last that at a high intensity, where some of the Spanish players struggled a little bit with the intensity.
Okay. Right, okay. Interesting. Because you do expect, obviously, them to be technical, but to be honest, I think up until that 12, 13, there's probably not a huge difference. I think and you had a good age group between that 13 to 17 is where you find the Europeans, etc., maybe excel because they've got that full-time environment, but you've now been able to experience that, and it's good to hear that we're on par and maybe a little bit ahead in some areas.
Yeah. I also think in Europe, we need to also understand, Chris, when the kids are at school, then it's compulsory for them to go to school from 8:30 to 2:30. So the Spanish kids are not getting the extra sessions in the morning like our international players were. If you don't go to school, you could get fined for every day you miss.
Right. Okay. So that gives you a bit of advantage over there, where the boys, the Australian and New Zealand boys, can train in the morning,
yes,
while the Spanish boys are at school. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And what did a standard training day look like then? Say for the boys.
So I'll give you a typical week. What we looked at, and for our international boys. So on Monday they would wake up. They would have different groups, and they would go to the gym for a activation session, because obviously they would have played Saturday or Sunday. Activation session, a light session in the gym just to get the some stretching and things like that going, with some band work. Then they would have Spanish classes at 10 a.m. Okay, so they'll go to Spanish 10:50 a.m. and then they'll be done by 12. They head back. For my boys that went with me, we would do an hour of online schooling together. So everybody meets in the dining hall. We'd do the online schooling. Then it's lunch between 1:30 and 2. Then the boys have some free time where they'll get their nap, and then we'll have a team training session at 4 p.m. to 5:30. Okay, and then afterwards, the boys would shower at the venue. Okay, and then head back to their residence. They'll have some free time. Some of the boys might have had assignments to do where they can catch up with the assignments, and then dinner at 8:30, between 8:30 and 9. Some time, and then lights are out at 11 p.m. 11 p.m., 11:30. Okay. Tuesday is our day off from football. So obviously they wake up in the morning, they have breakfast, there's no gym. Then they'll go to Spanish classes again. They'll come back, they'll do some online work, a little bit, about 2.5 hours on a Tuesday because they've got more time. Then they've got lunch. And then for my team, what I did in the afternoons, I did some video analysis with them. So they came down to the dining hall with the Spanish boys after school, and we did some video analysis sessions on our previous game. And then it was some free time. A lot of the boys went for haircuts and that on a Tuesday because that's their day off. And they did a little bit of shopping to keep some snacks in their room and some water and things like that. And then it's dinner again. Wednesday, they wake up, a group will go to the gym. The other group will have individual position-specific sessions. Okay. Spanish classes. And then, obviously, they'll have team training in the afternoon. Thursday, the team that had individual sessions will go to a gym session. The other team will be on the field. Spanish classes. And then afternoon session. Friday, gym session in the morning. A little bit of free time and then lunch, and then afternoon session, which is much lighter because obviously we play on Saturdays. And then that will consist of set plays and that, and then dinner, and then obviously the boys would go and sleep a little bit earlier because sometimes it depends on your age group. Sometimes you'll play at 11 in the morning, sometimes you'll play 3 in the afternoon, sometimes you'll play 6 in the evening. Okay, and then on a Sunday, because the younger teams play on Saturdays, the first team of the academy and the under-19s, they'll play on a Sunday, and if they're playing at home, all the boys from the residents will go together, and go and watch the game and, be around the first team.
So it's a proper full-on football environment then. Like, it's just football, football, football. And it's good that they're able to do their schooling in between. I suppose it's very important for them, for their parents, and for you, and the Spanish classes. So they've got a lot on. That's, you know what I mean? Like, that's a huge commitment.
Yeah, it's a full-time program. So with football and Spanish classes and online learning, it's very intense. At first it's a lot of work, but as the boys get into a routine, it becomes a lot easier, and they start coping better with it.
Yeah,
Where
routine do help, don't they? Like, once you've
yes,
got a routine in place, everything just becomes a lot easier.
yes, that's it. And obviously, if the boys get injured, we've got our tutors that will take them to the hospital or to the doctor. If the boys get sick, the tutors are there to take them, make sure they get their medication. So everything is taken care of, Chris. Which I think the biggest things for the parents is obviously they came in, they said, Kerwin, this city is so lovely. It's very small, it's safe. If it was Barcelona or Madrid, we might have some concerns, but like, I know for the boys, it becomes a little bit boring, but for me, I know because I started being a pro when I was 15, that you can get lost if you're in a big city, which obviously I didn't want to make a mistake with the young boys that I'm working with.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good thing to think about is those less distractions, because obviously it's easy, as you say, if you're in Barcelona, Madrid, London, somewhere in America, there's always lots going on, and as you say, it's a lot of distraction for what you're there for, which is to obviously improve your game and hopefully pick up a full-time opportunity somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. And how about yourself? How did, touching back on like yourself and the travel and the process itself around, visas, was that something with some of the kids and you, without a European background, how easy was
Yes.
it to get visas to be there for a year, or how did that all work?
So obviously this goes back to the research, Chris. Like, obviously people need to source their own visas, and obviously us as Australians with Australian passport holders or New Zealanders, you can go into Spain or Europe, and you can be there for 90 days without a visa, okay, which is good. But now, the research that I did with this academy, obviously because they are linked with the government and they offer educational program as well, okay, players can come in and then they get a visa, a student visa, and they get a little knee card. That's obviously a photo ID with your knee number, so you can be traced, where you are, where you live, things like that. The academy takes care of all of that. Okay. Obviously, the boys that are 18 and over, they'll need to get a police check from Australia, and you need to get a medical certificate to say you're physically fit, you can train, you don't take any drugs, things like that. We have to send that to Sydney to get apostilled to make it a legal document, worldwide. And then obviously the academy sorts out all the paperwork for the boys. Okay. And inclusive is like a health insurance. So that's compulsory if you want to get the visa, which the academy and the admin staff take care of all of that for the boys. So they'll get there in about a month. All the documents will be lodged if the documents are there. if the documents, if we're still waiting for the apostille documents, they lodge it, and then once they arrive, they'll put it forward. And then the boys do have to go to the police station to show themselves, to put their fingerprint in, to take a photo of themselves, to get that card, to say it is them and they are residing over here.
Yeah.
So we got a visa for a year, okay, a student
Yeah.
visa, and then, which is really good. And then the boys that are going back this season in 2 weeks' time, they just had to renew it, so they don't have to get all the paperwork again. They just had to go to the
Right.
police
Okay.
station, and then it just gets renewed, which they've given a document to us. So when we flying into Barcelona, we show the document, obviously with our passport, to say we are residents and we have gone home, but we're coming back to start our course again.
Fantastic. So
And
because
with
it's linked through.
And with us doing that through the education part with the government, our players are allowed to play in the federation competition.
That's what I was going to say, because again, coming back to, as you said, with finding the right place, because they're doing education as well as football, that gives you that opportunity to have a 12-month student visa rather than just showing up to play football.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. It makes life a lot easier. And how many years in a row can they renew that as a student? So if they want to go back 2, 3, 4 times, is that possible?
I think you can renew it up to 3 years, Chris.
Yeah.
And the good thing now, Spain have just passed this, I think, late last year, that if you on a student visa, you can work up to 30 hours a week now. Before you couldn't. You couldn't do any work. Like I'm talking about if you're over 18, okay? Which now, and you don't get paid a lot of money in jobs over there because the cost of living is very cheap, and the average wage in Spain is between 800 to 1,000 euros a month. Okay, depend what job you have. Yeah, but then for our boys, I think the first year was good that they just went in and just focused on their football and their schoolwork. Because the most important thing the parents are also worried about is that are they going to be doing their schoolwork? Who's going to be monitoring? The academy is fortunate enough to have a full-time psychologist, a sports psychologist on their books, and he tutors all the boys. So when they need to do an exam, he makes sure that he gets the exam paper. He puts them in a room to make sure there's no cheating going on. And then obviously when they finish, they hand it to him. He scans it and then he emails it to the school, so the boys can get marked and assessed.
Fantastic. That's good. It covers everything for them. And just touching on the psychologist there, did any of the players make use of that? I know they're young, but for someone else to talk to if they just felt like they were homesick, or and they were obviously talking to you all the time, but so that's available for them if they need sort of help just to chat to someone?
Yeah, obviously, the psychologist doesn't push the boys to say you have to come and talk to me, because they need to feel comfortable, as he says. And a few boys have reached out to him, have spoken to him. They've had one-on-one chats, which is very relaxed to make the boys feel comfortable, so they can communicate and let him know how they feel, which was good. Obviously, going back the second time, they'll feel a little bit more comfortable because, us as humans, we need to trust someone before we can really open up to them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's just an excellent addition as well, because there's obviously so many emotions they would be going through as especially the young ones in a foreign environment, foreign culture, different everything.
Yes.
And they've got you there as the familiar face, but if they're living in there and month after month and they see these people around, as you say, it makes them feel more comfortable around them as well. And it's just another resource for them, isn't it?
Correct. And the good thing is when the parents came over, the psychologist met with the parents, and the CEO met with the parents just to have a chat with him face to face. He gave some feedback, and some parents were shocked as how much the CEO that doesn't coach their son know about their son on a football level, but also in the residence as well. All like the CEO, the psychologist, myself, all the coaches at lunchtime, we eat in the residence with all the players as well, which is good. And obviously the older boys help the younger boys help the older boys. So it's a big
Mm.
family environment in the residence.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing place to be. If you love football and that's what you want to do, that sounds like an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really is. What I like, the cities, obviously, the Spanish kids, they've got a different culture. So they out till 10, 11, 12 o'clock sometimes, on the
Mm.
weekends, which obviously I had to put a little curfew on my boys because in Australia, our, our kids don't really go out at that time. Okay. I'm talking
No.
about the 14, 15, 16 year olds, all right? Whereas I said, okay, 9:30, they need to be in the residence, not sleeping, but
Mm.
obviously you can be in your room playing Xbox, PlayStation, you can be doing some homework, you can be in the dining hall, you can be in the gym, that's fine. And then Saturday after their games, I'd give them a little bit more time and say, okay, you can go out, you need to be back by 10:30. Um, and which is good is when the boys come in, we've got a 24-hour receptionist over there. So if the boys come in, the
Mm.
doors close at 11 p.m. And if you come in after that, we know who comes in after that, and then obviously we'll have a little chat. Um, but the academy is also flexible that if you've got if you want to go out, just say for Halloween or for Christmas,
Mm.
then you just need to communicate with your parents. Your parents send the office an email to say so and so is going to be out. They should be home at midnight. They're going, yeah, and then that's fine as long as we've got a record that we know you're leaving. And
And your parents know as well. Your
yes,
parents are happy with it.
yeah, correct.
Yeah. And did you have many chats, as you would say? Did you have many problems with the boys and curfews, or not really?
With the older boys, yes, because obviously they're over
Yeah.
18. They get carried away, and obviously
Yeah.
they had some Spanish teammates, they had some American teammates, which they got
Mm.
carried away. But obviously, I had to have a few conversations, hard conversations with them, you know, just to let them know. I also had some hard conversations with some of the younger boys because some of them weren't eating properly. Their diet
Mm.
was all over the shop. Okay. Which obviously going to Spain, their food is a little bit different to ours. Okay,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of vegetables, a lot of pasta, things like that, which sometimes our boys are not used to. Okay, but also when you're living at home, you can say, "Mum, I don't want that." Mum will make something else for you that you
Mm.
fancy, or you just go down to Macca's or Hungry Jack's or
Yeah.
KFC and get something to eat. Where we try to keep the boys um, in line with the eating stuff because they're athletes now and because they're doing so many sessions, your body needs fuel. Okay, um,
Mm.
once a week we'd have room inspection, so the tutors would go in the rooms to make sure the rooms are tidy and neat and your bed is made and things like that. Um, which is also good. So it's the boys' responsibility to look after the apartment. We'd get someone in once a week to clean the bathroom and the toilet area and that for the boys. Okay,
Mm.
but everything else was the responsibility of the boys.
That's fantastic. It's a good, like the discipline, the routine, the structure. Like you say, it's life lessons for young kids that as much as, they might whinge and not enjoy it at the start, it will become part of a normal process for them and it will help them later in life, no doubt.
Yes, and some of our boys that went there, obviously, mum and dad packed their bags for
Mm.
training. Tells them what time they're leaving. They need to be ready at this time. If they're not ready, then mum and dad goes and reminds them. We're over there in
Mm.
Spain. We've got certain times. So if training starts at 4 o'clock, all the players need to be in the change room at 3:30. Training starts at
Mm.
5:30. Everybody needs to be at 5. You need to be in the change room. And if you come late, you might get turned away. So with our international players, they were always there. They were just hungry to train, which is
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
They
Oh, that's excellent.
the
Excellent.
coaches never had a problem with our boys because the standards were really high.
Mm. And I can imagine now, obviously, a few of them are being a bit older, but for any of them that don't go back and have this experience again, if they end up somewhere else with an opportunity, I can imagine that all these life skills, lessons, discipline, routine will help them if they turn up in the UK or America or Asia somewhere for trials or opportunities, that they'll have a very high standard off the pitch, which will help them, I think, on the pitch.
Yeah, I totally agree. And by helping a little bit, that 1% could either
Mm,
get them a contract or not get you a contract, right? That's the way I look at the little 1%ers, because people always look at the big picture. For me, I break it down to look at the little
mm,
1%ers, because that means so much, like even the way you turn up to training, how you dress, your haircut, are you neat,
mm,
because when you go into the real world, obviously you turn off the
mm,
interview, the person that's interviewing you is going to look at you and see if you the correct fit for their company, for their brand. Okay, and that is
yeah.
the same for a footballer, because obviously whichever club you're going to, they have a brand. Okay, especially in
Mm,
Europe, Asia, they have a brand, and they need to get the right fit, not someone that's going to bring bad publicity to them. You know, which was really good. Like the thing with our boys, which was really good. And I know over here in Australia in the NPL, if players don't play, some parents complain. Players complain. Over there in Spain, some of our boys didn't play every week. Okay, I understand that, and I'm aware of that. But you know what? They never complained, Chris. They turned up every day and they
mm,
worked twice as harder. You know, um, and which was really good. Obviously, they would have a little complaint to their roommates and things like that. And I
mm,
understand in football,
yeah.
not everybody can be happy, even coaches
Mm,
all the time. Okay, but you could see the determination. They turned up. They weren't sulking. They worked hard. Which that was a real eye opener for me.
mm. Yeah, that's
And
good because I suppose, as you know, over here with, sorry,
mm,
with the NPL, etc., everyone has to play. Everyone has to play. You have to give everyone equal time. But over there, that's not the case. If you're performing, you play. If you're not performing, you don't play. And then like that, you have to work harder to get your opportunity again.
yeah, that's correct. And obviously, it's preparing. And I'll give you a little example. We played in Division de Honor, which is a elite competition, the highest competition in the category that we were playing in. Okay, um, obviously, Lionel Messi, when he was younger, he played in that competition. All right, so it just shows you that we had 20 teams in our competition. So for the season, we played 38 games, um,
Mm.
and 7 teams got relegated. Okay, so that's a big
Wow.
chunk. It's a big chunk.
Yeah.
So every game, it's like, and we had 10 international players, and we had an Armenian player, we had two Brazilians, we had a player from Netherlands, and then the rest were Spanish players. Okay, a squad of 22. So keeping everybody happy when you only can have 18 on the team sheet is kind of hard. So
Mm.
you need to manage that. Okay, but every game is putting together a team like that for the first season, and this team being in that competition for the first time was difficult,
Mm.
because we are living in Huesca and most of the teams are in Zaragoza, so we had to travel every second week to Zaragoza, which is about 40-45 minute drive. There was one that we had to travel, I think, two and a bit hours to a game. All right. Um, and we finished 10th, which was a good achievement. Okay. And we accumulated 56 points for the season. Okay. And we had the highest goal scorer of the competition in our team.
Mm.
So
So it's a
teams that had 43, 40 points got relegated.
yeah, it's a big chunk, as you say. 7 out of 20 teams is a lot to get
Yes.
relegated. Wow, so there's a
And
lot of
and
pressure
obviously,
as well. Like that puts the pressure on.
yeah, and obviously, you get relegated, then you lose your better players. So whatever you've been working
Mm.
for as a club, as an academy, as a team, you lose those players because there are good players that want to play in that competition because that's where you get
Mm.
recognized.
And that's where I suppose, from the club's point of view and the CEO, they want to create a good environment to have good players, but have a good program so that you stay in that division and you can roll that on year after year.
Yes, correct. And obviously, hopefully your younger team can also get promoted. So maybe at some point you can have two teams in that competition, okay? Which will be better for the club. But also then it puts your players on show to the bigger academies in the league, like the Real Zaragoza is one of the top 5 academies in Spain.
That was my next question. Actually, is what did you find the opportunities were or are for the, probably more so the older boys, I guess, but for all the boys, to get picked up by other clubs in Spain, like potentially bigger clubs or bigger academies.
Yeah, so it was good. We had two 17-year-olds that were playing Juvenile B. They couldn't play Juvenile R because they had new Australian passports. Okay, but they were really doing well. One was a centre back, one was a right back, right fullback. That did extremely well. And in 4 months of them being there, they got invited in to train with Brea. They are second rev professional team. So they were training 4 mornings a week with them. Okay, but obviously playing with the academy, they couldn't sign with Brea as well because they were under 18. So they got opportunities to train there and to be in a full-time like professional environment with professional players. And by 17, not many 17-year-olds are called in to train with professional teams in Spain, like teams like that. They don't have a big budget. Obviously, they want to get more experienced players to either win the competition or to stay in the competition so they can still get the funding from the federation. Okay. We've our striker that finished top goal scorer of the competition. He scored 32 goals in 34 games. Jordy Brent. He went on trial with Alaves. Okay. Alaves were in the Segunda division, their top team. They just got promoted to La Liga now. So they're back in La Liga. Jordy went there for a week's trial. They looked after him. He stayed there in their residence. They paid for everything. And then obviously came back to obviously finish the season. Then we had Ethan Sardellis and Jordy Brent that went to Real Zaragoza as well. And they were there for 4 weeks training with them. When I get back to Spain, we'll get some feedback on both those boys and see how they flared over there and what's the next step. But I know obviously we had a little bit of a disadvantage because those two boys are 16 at the moment. They only turned 17 in the new year. Okay. So it's a little bit tricky, but obviously them still being in the full-time environment, training full-time, it's only going to improve them.
Yeah, and the opportunities are obviously there. Like there's some big clubs for people that know the Spanish league. That's some big clubs that are looking at this league and at these potential players for opportunities.
Like I'll give you a little example, Chris. We went to Madrid for the International Players Cup in January 2023. Okay, there was some big academies, Atletico Madrid. There was Getafe, Leganés, Rayo Vallecano. Also, we invited Gold Coast Knights from the Gold Coast. We invited Oakley Cannons from Melbourne as well. So they came through. Okay. And obviously, my team was mostly Australian boys in there. If you look at it, did really well. We came second in our group. Okay. And we set up a semi-finals against Atletico Madrid. In our group stages, we beat Oakley Cannons. We lost to Rayo Vallecano. We beat Leganés 3-2. And then obviously we played Atletico Madrid in the semi-finals. And my pre-game talk, I was talking to the boys in the hotel before, and the Spanish boys were just so happy that we were playing Atletico Madrid, but nobody in the room thought we had a chance. Okay, because, and I said, like, boys, we have nothing to lose. Like, the Spanish boys, they look at you from a small city and they think, oh, you know what, you can't play football. And then they look at our Australian boys and think, oh, you boys are kangaroos. You don't know what football are like. And I said, boys, if we lose, that's fine, but we lose on our terms. But we're going out there and we're not going to be intimidated, but let's take the game to them, you know? We ended up drawing 2-2. We lost 4-2 on penalties, but the coach he came up to me after the game, he spoke to me, he said, you've got a really good team with the intensity they play at. It'll be hard for any team to beat you, you know. The coach from Rayo Vallecano came to speak to me after the game, exactly the same thing. He was a La Liga player. You know, Leganés coach spoke to me. So it was really good for our boys to see the level and to play against top academies.
And do well and be competitive.
Yes. Yes.
And do you think that'll help? As you said, just something you touched on there about, and you can imagine you're playing against Atletico Madrid. You're like, we're from Australia, you know what I mean? Like, but the mentality, I guess, going into next year, it must be a lot stronger as well now. Going, actually, you know what? We've been here for a year. We've done it. We've drawn with Atletico Madrid. We've beaten other academies. So that psychology. So you've got the performance, you've got your conditioning, your strength, but the mentality when you get to that level as well is so important. And no doubt, results and experiences like that will help invaluably next season.
Yes, I totally agree. Like, there's 3 boys that flew out on Monday, okay, because their team started training on Wednesday, and I've been keeping contact, finding out how because I'm still back in Australia, finding out how they're going, and 2 boys are new to the program. Okay, they were new boys. And they said to me, Kerwin, like, the intensity is just on a different level over here. We need to we need to get used to it, but we thoroughly we love the session. We enjoyed the session. The boys in our team want to be here. Everybody works hard. The coaches push us, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and again, it'll come back to that. And a few people that I've interviewed in the last couple of weeks now, talking about the extras outside of your normal training, how important it is to make that jump. And as you said, with the first group, you had the 6 months, but moving forward now, you can tell everyone that's going how important those extra gym sessions, conditioning sessions, activation sessions, stretching, just all those little 1%ers that'll really add up. And as you say, let you hit the ground running when you get across there.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, Chris, like, everybody thinks, you know, you do your 3 or 4 sessions at NPL level and that's enough. You might think it's enough. For me as a coach, I don't think it's enough. You know, I think you need to be doing more to be ahead of the next person. Because if you're not doing it, the next person's doing it, or the other person's doing it.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be someone striving to do it. And I know, because I've come from South Africa, where people are not well off. There's a lot of poverty. So obviously, people, when they have an opportunity, they want to take it, because that contract could take them out of poverty, right, and give their family a better life. So I've witnessed it firsthand, you know. So I think, and I, you know, I'd ask the young boys that have ambitions to go on and sign pro contracts or play for their national team, you know what, do extra work.
Yeah. And it's, as you say, coming, like what you've mentioned, there's players there from Brazil, Peru, you know, other South America, Europe. And we've got boys coming from the Gold Coast, and you know from being here that the lifestyle on the Gold Coast is so far away from some of the kids that might come from South America, South Africa, wherever it may be, is to drill that mentality into them. And I suppose seeing it firsthand and the intensity and the level. But how do you sort of manage that at the start before they go, to give them that message of how important this is going to be and who you're going to be up against? When, as you say, they've come from here, they're at the beach, the sun's out all the time. It's an amazing place to live.
Yeah, I think, Chris, it's also, for me, obviously, with my academy, I want to do things right. I haven't called Football Center of Development an academy. It's called Football Center of Development. The word academy is used too loosely in Australia, I feel. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously I've got a brand to protect. Okay. And when I tell a CEO or an agent I'm bringing this type of player, he needs to tick
Mm.
boxes. So obviously he needs to have the right attitude, the right work ethic. He needs to be honest. Okay. And he needs to be a good player. He doesn't need to be
Mm.
great. Okay. But he needs to be a good player. But his work ethic and his
Mm.
application and his attitude, that can make up, and he can be better if he's in a good environment. Okay. So obviously I have interviews with parents, with players.
Mm.
Some players might not tick the box. Okay. They might not tick the box this year, but obviously when we have the conversation, they might tick the box next year. So I'm not
Mm.
closing the door, but also we need to take the right players, because this opportunity, you don't find it every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as I say, I know from experience, and so do you now, that at the NPL potentially in some places you pay your money and that gives you your spot. Do you know what I mean? It's not a selection process in a lot of places. Whereas this has to be, because the standard that you're going into and the environment you're going into, you can't just take anyone. They have to tick, as you say, tick those boxes, because it reflects on you for next season. If you take players over there that let you down, there's less chance of it becoming a long-term process, I suppose.
Yes, and obviously, because now that I'm based in Spain, I get a lot of agents calling me and asking me for feedback, and obviously for me to give some input on players, and obviously the A League and players coming out of
Mm.
Australia, and obviously AFC players looking to go to Saudi. A lot of agents have contacted me, but obviously, number one, honesty is my main thing. That I have to be honest with parents, with
Mm.
agents, with coaches, you know, about the level and where your kid is at, or what they need to do to improve. Because obviously, I would like to see all kids get something out of life. Okay. But not only football, but I would
Mm.
like to make better human beings, because we get better human beings in the
Mm.
world, then the world changes and becomes a.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And everything you spoke about in regards to the off field stuff, definitely is going to help with that. And look, I could probably talk about this for hours, but I am conscious of time. So if I was
Yes,
a parent listening to this now, I've got a 14, 15-year-old son that's good, loves his football, he's
yes,
determined to be a professional footballer. This sounds like an amazing opportunity. It obviously costs money.
yes.
What does it cost? Who do you pay? How does that process work? If you want to go into that detail, and then where do they find you to get more information?
So obviously, Chris, it does cost, because it's a full-time program, and then obviously in Spain, visas cost a lot, Spanish classes cost
Mm.
a lot, accommodation and food, because obviously the academy has to have two full-time chefs to make sure that it's running
Mm.
like an academy. Okay. Obviously, there's transport. They pick you up at the airport. There's the psychologist. Not many academies have a full-time psychologist. They work into it. We fortunate to have one. Okay. Um,
Mm.
so it does cost a little bit. I don't deal with obviously the money side of things. The academy
Mm.
in Spain deals with that. The CEO will obviously. So what happens if a player is interested from Australia or from New Zealand? They'll reach out. They'll contact me. Okay.
Mhm.
I will give their parents a call just to have a little brief chat and just explain to them a little bit what the program is about. And if they
Yeah.
still keen on wanting to take that next step, then I will send them some more information about the timetable and how it all works and the city they're living in.
Yeah.
And then I will need a player profile from the player, just to show where he's played, how old he
Yeah.
is, his height, his weight, the basic things like that, and a little video highlight reel. Okay. Obviously, me
Okay.
having the experience coaching in the NPL in Australia, I know more or less the standard. and if a player would be able to come over to Spain and what team they would be put into, okay? Because obviously there's different teams that play in different divisions. Because you don't want to put a player in the top division and his skill level's not up there, but then he doesn't play the whole season. Okay, you want to put him in a team where he is going to get developed, still be challenged, and then I'll have a look at it. I'll call the CEO. We'll have a little conversation, or if I'm in say, Kerwin, do you think he's a good fit? I'll say I think he can compete over here. Then we get a Zoom call with the parents, the CEO, and myself, and the player, and just explain to them everything that goes on in the academy, the day-to-day stuff, the games, what opportunities we can create. Okay, because we give a player 3 options. So there's an option. The first option we'd like is to obviously get a player a pro contract. Okay, that's the first option. The second one is we can get a player semi-pro contract. Okay, if he's good enough. And the third option is if we can't do that, then we can try and get him American scholarship in the US, so he can obviously study and still play football. Okay. And then obviously over there, cost would be spoken about with the CEO and the parents. Okay. Depending what time, then a deposit would need to be paid. Obviously, that deposit will cover the visa and obviously get the accommodation, because the academy doesn't own the residence. They hire it off a part hotel in Huesca. Okay. So obviously you have to let them know early how many rooms you need, things like that. So because all the players have to stay in the residence, they can't be staying at accommodation outside, international players.
Excellent. And then the players, the parents, they decide to go ahead. And from there, it's a matter of obviously paying X amount of euros, either in a lump sum or on a monthly basis. Is that right? I know there was one or two that could do monthly.
So with me, Chris, and obviously because I have a good relationship with the CEO, and obviously I know the players that I'm bringing over. Normally, the other players, like the other international players, they pay in 3 installments. They pay the full amount in 3 installments. Yeah. Okay. With mine, we pay a deposit. And then we start on the 1st of August till the last installment will be in the beginning of May. So it's like 10 monthly installments to help the parents. Parents can pay it up front if they want and they're willing to, but it's just to help our parents also, instead of, because not everybody's just got so much money lying around, and obviously the cost of the transfers through the bank is also quite high, right?
Yeah, and that's where I come in. We'll talk about that another time.
Yes, that's where you come in.
But that's the idea behind it. It is interesting. I mean, it's things people probably don't think about, because you do have so much on there, but the currency side of it on one part is important. Aussie euro at the moment is at a terrible rate. It's like 3-year low, so it's going to cost even more in Australian dollars now. So having a chat to someone around that stuff to help is helpful as well, and that's why we have this service that we try and help people. But there's so much for them to think about, but such a wonderful opportunity. What you've spoken about today sounds incredible. I wish I was like 17 again. I could go and do it.
I wish I had this opportunity when I was 14, 15, 16,
Yeah.
And also for Chris, like for me, and I know the kids find it hard. It's been hard for me because I've been living over there for the past 11 months. Okay. My kids, I haven't been with my kids, and my family, so it's very hard. Just speak to them via FaceTime every day. They come over. They came over in March to spend 2.5 weeks with me, but the time goes so fast that you go home after training or after games, and you're in your apartment on your own. It's tough for me.
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
But obviously, I've also had the boys to lean on to because they've been like my kids over there. So I
Mm.
can, you know, have a coffee or have an orange juice with them, talk about things, which has been really good. Um, Obviously, I met some Spanish people there as well. But most of the time, you're on your own, um,
Mm.
which is tough. But obviously, juggling things around, I got through it.
Yeah, it is tough being in a foreign country. Kids for one thing, but for yourself as well. As you say, you're away from your family. You're obviously chasing a dream. You like a player who wants to be in a full time environment. As a coach, you've no doubt got that same ambition to be in a good professional full time environment. And unfortunately, as you said at the beginning, it's not readily available here in Australia. So you do have to take up opportunities elsewhere, which comes with sacrifice.
Yeah, that's the thing, because if you don't, like, if I didn't have to take it up, I don't think I'd be coaching anymore. I was just thinking of going to get a 9 to 5 job, because I
Mm.
wasn't being challenged anymore. I was losing passion. It's just, it came to that point because
Mm.
there's not enough opportunities here in Australia where you can be in a full-time environment where you can be challenged.
Yeah.
And as you know, there's a lot of politics that go with things and things, but that's another discussion for another day.
I know. As I said, this could go on for hours and hours. I love it, but I am conscious of time. We've been over an
Okay,
hour. I'll hit stop on the recording. But
okay.
um, Kerwin, thank you very much for your time and your sort of openness and honesty around the process. As I said, it sounds like an amazing opportunity, and I'll drop the details of Football Centre Development in the show notes for people if they do want to reach out to you. If they've listened to this episode and it sounds like something they want to inquire more about, I'll leave you contact details for that. But I do really appreciate your time and the insight to all that because it does sound amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciated the invite and being on here talking football with you. Obviously, we can catch up when I'm back in Spain, you know,
Yeah,
and keep the conversation ongoing. Yeah. So just thank you once again.
no problem.